Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Blue Table Talk. I have another interesting guest for us today. His name is Gerald Anthony. And Gerald Anthony has a very interesting background. He was military, both Army and Navy. He was a Border Patrol officer. He was a special agent in the ATF, and he's now a private investigator. So I think this is going to be very interesting. We have a lot of interesting things to share. Again, this is Derek Smith with the Intercessors Investigative Group and the Private Investigations Academy. So let's go ahead and get started. And Gerald, first of all, thank you very much for being here. People really love these interviews because they like to see folks who are in the industry who've been there and done that. And they learn from you. And plus, we have nothing out there where we share, our stories. So this gives us a chance to share our story. So I want to start with you sharing your story. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell people what you do today?
Well, I really, first of all, I want to appreciate what you do because I'm by myself. I don't talk to anybody. So this way we get our stories out there to help others that want to come in. Because I'm telling you, reality and stories are a whole different thing. Movies are movies and real life is real life. It's two different things.
Gerald, I'm glad you said that because the one guy I interviewed said the same. He said, don't believe the hype that you see on television. We're not solving something in 45 minutes.
That's exactly my point.
Right.
Cases might last years, not 45 minutes.
So what do you do right now? What are you doing as a career?
Right now, I'm a private investigator, and mainly I'm working a particular government contract, and I can talk about it because it's not confidential or classified. It's a contract given by the USDA under the SNAP or EBT program, and it's to eradicate fraud in the EBT system. But they're not targeting individuals, the consumers. They're not targeting consumers. They're targeting the stores.
And when you say EBT, you talking about electronic banking?
They call it electronic. Forgot what EBT stands for, but it's the card they use for food stamps.
Oh, yes, I know that. Okay.
Food stamps. They call it SNAP in some places, supplementary nutritional program.
Okay.
But basically, it's food stamps. But the contract is specific to target the stores, not the consumers. Although there's fraud with consumers, obviously. People lie all the time about how, and they get the stamps. But this is particularly, and that's why I'm so grungy, the look is on purpose, because I go into the stores and I try to commit fraud.
So does that mean buying things that you're not supposed to buy, cigarettes and booze and things like that?
Booze, cigarettes, money, anything that's not edible. With food stamps, the only thing you can buy is food. Not even hot food, just food that you got to prepare at home.
And milk and things like that, yeah.
Milk, eggs. So it's a very interesting contract, and there's stuff out there for PIs that you never know, you never hear about, because this is a job that a government agent should be doing. But the USDA figured that it was too big of a monster to deal with. So what they did is they subcontracted to a company. And this company is nationwide, and that's who I work for. And I'm specifically in the state of Texas. So I'm telling you, I'm doing this. I'm supposed to be, slowing down, and I'm doing overtime because I'm the only one in Texas. Just imagine Texas, how big Texas is, and all the stores. So it keeps me busy. But that's what I do now.
So do you do this exclusively, or do you take other cases on our side too?
I do take other cases, mainly insurance related, such as workers' comps, surveillances, anything related to insurance. That's what I stick to. I used to do back when I started. I used to do adultery cases or infidelity cases, but I steered away from that. It's too emotional, too many unknowns to deal with.
Yeah, I'm with you. I try to work exclusively with lawyers if I can. And, but by the way, I have a case I want to send you after this is over. I have someone from Texas reaching out to me. It's a real estate related thing. and I'm put you in touch with her because I'm in Maryland and it's all the way in Texas. I was gonna inquire today to see if I can find somebody in Texas, and I have you, so I'll send that to you today.
Now the thing about Texas, they say everything's bigger in Texas. That's a lie. What's big in Texas is land. There's a lot of land.
That's true. That's true. You have land, but then you have pockets of residential. Yep. Yeah.
There's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. People in our field don't, especially new people coming in the PI field, don't realize all the different opportunities that they have. Some of my folks have background investigation contracts with government contracts, and they work exclusively on those, making $60-$70 an hour. You got to kind of what you just said. I never knew about. I learned something new today. So hopefully that'll help somebody. Hopefully they're gonna reach out to you and say, "Hey, how do I do that in Maryland?" Whatever it may be. So that's pretty good. Thanks.
Well, let me tell you something. I'll backtrack a few years back. When I started as a PI, in Puerto Rico, a private investigator, and I was doing some work for a known company. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's called Ethos Risk Services. Anyway, and they were hiring to do very strange cases, and I didn't know who the client was. And they do it on purpose. They don't want the client to know who the investigator is, and that way they don't rob that investigator from Ethos. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah, makes sense.
So anyways, these cases were really weird, and they were sending me to do mainly undercover stuff, such as purchases, and it was related to telecommunications. And when I say telecommunications, I'm talking about specifically satellites.
Okay.
Now, not the satellites, government type, but the satellite dishes that have TV programming, that kind of thing.
Phone, all that.
So, anyways, I was very curious about it, but hey, they were hiring me to do it, and I would do it. Anyways, it got to a point. This is talking about 2013. It got to a point that the client said, "I want to know who your investigator is. I want to talk to him." Because the investigator just does the reports, and the reports go nameless to the client on this particular contract. But they found it so good. They found me to be so good that they said, no, I want to talk to him. I want to hire him directly. I want to take Ethos out of the way. And Ethos, since they had a big contract with us, says, yeah, we'll lose one, but we'll keep the contract. So anyways, what happened was, and all this story has a point. I'll get to it. I started doing these odds and ends, and I ended up with the biggest contract I've ever had as a PI. And it was a company called NagraStar. And NagraStar is just under the umbrella of Dish, the satellite company, the TV program. And they are the anti-piracy arm of Dish. As a matter of fact, they have a website. You can look it up. It's called SAT Scams, SAT Scams. And they post about basically all the pirates out there. And the interesting thing about this is that I'm not technological at all. I know how to do a Word document. I don't even have a clue how a fax works. I just press it works. But just to let you know, it doesn't matter what you're investigating. You don't have to be an expert in technology. You don't have to be an expert in cyber criminology. All you got to do is be a good investigator. Absolutely. And apply those investigative skills that you learn, because the skills I learned with the government had nothing to do with Dish. I had no clue, but I use the investigative skills and I apply them like any other case. Just to give you an example, whenever there's a missing person or anything like that, the local cops, who they focus on? They focus on the partner, right? Because that's the person who probably had lost contact with them the last time. So you start micro, and you go macro. That person is not a possible suspect. Then you go look others. The same principle I apply to these Dish pirates.
Mhm.
And all I did, and it blew Niagara's mind. All I did was I asked them, they were having a big problem of piracy in the Caribbean.
Mhm.
And just to give you an example how big this piracy is, just to give you an example, and it happens in the U.S. too. I mean, it happens worldwide.
Mhm.
Just to give you an example, if you purchase the whole Dish Network programming, it's about 160 a month,
Mhm.
and it doesn't include all the pay-per-views.
Mhm. Right.
That's on the side. That you pay 60 or 80 bucks for that on the side.
Mhm.
Okay, these pirates offer the 160 plus all the pay-per-views for $7 a month.
What?
Who will you go for? I mean, you as a consumer,
Mhm.
you're gonna go for $7.
Absolutely. Can you give me their number? Oh no, I'm just kidding.
You can look it up. The pirates usually call themselves reds
Yeah.
or blues. Blues are for the competition of Dish. Oh my God, the ones with AT&T, DirecTV.
Mhm. Okay.
So if you see blue, that they're referring to DirecTV. If you see
Okay.
red, they're referring to Dish.
All right.
But in order to pirate them, you gotta have their dish, but you don't need their box. And
Mhm.
this is where it gets a little bit technical. The pirates will sell you up front a box, maybe $100,
Mhm.
and that box decodes the dish programming, and they decode it and they send it to that box, and then you get to see the whole programming,
Mhm.
including the pay-per-views. So the consumer, especially in the Caribbean where there's a lot of poor folk, they'll they'll jump on the piracy bandwagon, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
So Dish was losing, I'm not talking millions, billions of revenue
Yeah. Oh yeah.
because of this piracy issue.
And I don't understand why they just sell it for $7. I'll pay $100 for that. You know?
I know.
Yeah.
And you're still saving $60, you know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Or more.
But the pirates don't have overhead, employees, any of that.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's all positive revenue, you know, it's all clean,
Mhm.
not taxable. They don't pay insurance,
Mhm.
they don't have overhead. I mean, it's all revenue, man. It's
Yep, yep.
so so what happened, and pull me back in if I go off track.
No, you good.
Uh we were I started investigating ex-employees of Dish. So I told Niagara, give me a list of all the disgruntled
Mhm.
employees that left.
Mhm.
Immediately, I hit on somebody when I went by the house, and I saw hundreds of Dish boxes,
Mhm.
and like just right in his porch. I'm like, oh, come on, there's something going on. I mean, common sense.
Mhm.
And this is gonna go back to what one of the questions. What makes you a good PI or a good investigator? Simple things: common sense, observation skills.
Mhm.
You can't top patience.
Mhm.
I mean, it makes a great investigator.
And I say critical, and I add critical thinking to that. You got to be able to think through this.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely, because you can see it right in front of you and not have a clue what's going on.
Mhm. You know, and it's very interesting. I like the way you take this and you've turned it into your specialty. And one thing I want to comment on, you said that
Right,
no matter, it doesn't matter which workman comp technology, basic investigative skill. We have a specialized skill, and we have to
right,
employ that specialized skills that we have. And that's why we can command the payment we want, because we have a
Ex-
specialized skill to be able to do what you do. You know.
exactly. And the most important one, in my opinion, I mean, I could be wrong. Attention to detail. The
Mhm.
devil is in the details.
Absolutely.
If you can look at the details and pin or remember or see a pattern, the patterns, because we're all animals of habit, bro. I'm
Mhm.
telling you,
Mhm.
everybody does it. If you're a criminal and you're doing something that's working for you, you're gonna keep doing it,
Yep.
and
Yep.
you're not gonna change from that. You're gonna
And,
keep
and
doing that.
and you know what, Jared? That's what get people caught. If they did it
Yeah,
once or twice, they might get away
yeah,
with it. That 20th
absolutely.
time, we're gonna get you.
Yeah, and law enforcement only has to catch you once.
Yep. Exactly.
but criminals are just like anybody else.
Mhm.
Even regular people, we're animals of habit, and we
Mhm.
keep doing the same thing over and over, over and over. So it's just a
Well,
matter of seeing that pattern.
you know what that makes me think about? Um, People, every case is different,
Right.
but in a way, every case is the same because
Yes.
theft is a theft, murder is a murder. We just got to get the mode and the mode, method, and means. But
Yeah.
everything is really the same. So your experience is going to be great for you because I've seen this before. Yeah, it's a little bit different person, different murder
Exactly.
weapon. I've seen it before.
The same thing, and those skills I acquired. For example, just to give you a little background, when I was a special agent with ATF,
Mm-hmm.
ATF, they trained me, which was good training. It was regular training. It was they started with CITP and Glencoe, which is
Mm-hmm.
criminal investigation.
Yep.
It's very general. I mean, it's very general.
Mm-hmm.
But and going a little bit back, going to the Border Patrol Academy. Border Patrol is paramilitary. If you look
Mm-hmm.
at it,
Right. Mm-hmm.
they're not military, but it's paramilitary. They try to imitate, especially in training. And I remember in training, and this is going back to all we're talking about. I remember doing the obstacle course in the basic program for Border Patrol,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the obstacles was a rope, and you had to either do the monkey, hand over hand, or you do the possum, where you put your legs up on the rope.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, I asked my instructor while I'm doing the possum, I said, when in the world will I be doing this in the field?
Mm-hmm.
This makes no sense to me. And he said, at some point, you will do it.
Mm-hmm.
I says, there's no way. There's no way I'm hanging from a rope. 2 years later, Derek, 2 years later, I'm hanging on the ledge of a canyon
Mm-hmm. Wow.
from my fingernails. And I'm saying, I'm on the rope. I'm on the freaking rope.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no clue how I was following dope, what I was doing. But I was back. So anything you do in training, it makes sense because at some point you will be doing it in real life.
Mm-hmm.
It's just different circumstances, different points of views.
Mm-hmm.
But the training you get does help in
Mm-hmm.
the field.
Well, I mean, you know what? People who put together these academy training courses, they put them together a certain way for a reason. You know.
Yes, that's my point. That's my
Mm-hmm.
point.
Mm-hmm.
There is a reason to the madness
A
they do.
means to the madness, like they say, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is behind all of it. There is a point they want to make.
So
So
let's
anyway,
talk about that for a minute,
okay,
because we're gonna get back to what you're saying. But how did you get started in your journey, your law enforcement career, your journey? Tell us about that for the newbies.
sure. I started in the military, and in the military is where I picked up that these guys, all they wanted me to do was to pay attention to detail.
Mm-hmm.
And for boot camp, all they wanted me was pay attention to detail.
Yep.
Like if you're making your bed with the hospital 45-degree corners, all it is detail.
Yeah. And what about how they had us fold our underwear up into little bitty pieces to get into that little drawer? You remember that?
It makes sense because in a ship, you're going to need all the space you need.
Yep.
All of this has a point. But the thing is, pay attention to the details because I'm telling you, the devil's in the details.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, the military always, not always, but it taught me to be patient.
Mm-hmm.
Hurry up and wait.
Mm-hmm.
That was the main thing. Hurry up. Be there at 5 a.m., although the appointment's at 9. But by God, you're going to be there.
Yep.
But just patience, attention to detail, and obviously, do your job the best you can.
Mm-hmm.
That's all the military is. The military, all it is a job with a uniform. That's all it is.
Oh yeah, and people love hiring military people because of what you just said. They know they got a person who's detail oriented that will be there when you tell them to be there, and they will follow directions.
That's the
Yep.
Even, and I want to take you a little bit more than that, because there's a lot of critical, people being critical about, let's say, college graduates.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a college graduate, and I don't want to, I'm not being blow my horn. I have master degrees on X or Y. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned that degrees, all they prove is what a vet already has. A college degree, all you're gonna learn basics on X or Y things, whatever. But you're gonna learn the real stuff in the field.
Right.
And we could be talking about accounting, criminal justice. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. You're gonna learn the real skills in your job.
Yep.
College, all it does, all you do in college is it shows that you're able to keep up with a schedule.
Yep.
And you can finish something.
Yeah, you know what?
And you have,
Gerald, I'm glad you said that, Gerald. I always tell people what college does is show that you stuck to something for 4 years. It shows that you will stick with something, whatever you're majoring in. Yep.
That's all college is. It shows that you're responsible enough to do something.
Yep.
But as to your particular field, you will learn that in the field. You won't learn that in college.
Absolutely.
I guarantee you.
Absolutely. I know accountants who went through all those years of accounting training. When they got out day one, they're like, wow, now I'm accounting.
What?
Exactly.
And then they'll stick your head in QuickBooks and they say everything you need to know is in QuickBooks or whatever.
Forget all that stuff you learned in school. Because you're not going to, and that's true, because you're not going to be doing debits and credits on paper like you learn in school. You're going to be using a tool that does that for you. So you were just telling me about, we were talking about how you got started. You just talked about your Army career. So what came next?
Right. So after the Army, I went into the Navy. It was cleaner. The Army is a little bit dirty because of the field. You got to go bivouacking.
Cleaner and wetter.
It's a little bit dirty. So I went into the Navy, and it was so interesting. Because I remember I just wanted to go and see the world. I remember that. I told my recruiter, I want to see the world. And we said, really? Sign here as a Seaman Striker, which will be an Air Force, will be a whatever. Oh, airman. It'll be an airman, right?
E1.
Are you there? Yeah.
Yes.
So anyways, I signed. They sent me to boot camp. And my A school was just seaman recruit. And so after that, it was only a month long learning how to tie knots and how to paint a ship.
So I
figured I was going to be painting ships.
that was pretty.
So anyways,
that sucked.
So anyways, I get orders to my next station, which I was thinking was going to be a ship, and they sent me to the Pentagon for the next 5 years.
That was nice.
Yeah, and although a whole different, what happened was as they saw that I had a college degree, that's the only reasoning I can get. So they said, let's send them to the Pentagon. So I went to the Pentagon, and I was the Navy Command Center's radioman. And just to give you, actually, the Navy Command Center was hit during 9/11, and it destroyed it. And all the Navy Command Center is just an operations center for the CNO, who's the Chief of Naval Operations. And back then, I'm talking about early 90s, it was Admiral Kelso. Admiral Kelso is famous for something called tailhook.
Oh, I investigate. I did a tailhook investigation. I did the investigation. Yep. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly. It was sexual harassment. But he was famous for that, basically. And I was basically his secretary. So I would schedule all his stuff. I would get all his calls. I was basically his secretary, but they called me a radio man for it. So anyways, I did it. I did it for the 5 years, and I decided to go back to I grew up in Puerto Rico, and that's another skill that that any investigator wants to work on will be a second language.
You know what? Another guy. I just did. He said the same thing, Gerald.
Yes, when I dream in Spanish, really. So I think my first language is Spanish. at some point you will hear an accent, because I'm what they call a New Yorican. What happened was I was born in New York, but I was raised in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
So that's why English, Spanish, I think it's my language. I think in Spanish, I count in Spanish, so it's got to be my first language. So anyways, I go back to Puerto Rico after the military, and while I'm in Puerto Rico, a friend of mine tells me, "Hey man, they're recruiting Border Patrol agents." Says, "Really?" Says, so I go check them out, and lo and behold, it took me though, and that's another thing. If you want a government job that requires a background, it's a long process, and you know this, Derek. It's a very long process. It took me, I think, 1.5 years to get in the Border Patrol.
Were you still in the military, Gerald? Were you still in the military at the time, waiting, or had you gotten out?
I was in what they call the Ready Reserve.
Okay, got you.
Which is basically in case there's a war, they'll call you. That's basically it.
Okay.
But I was basically a civilian, you might say. But the background, they go and check everything on you, especially where you were in the military. Any bad discharge, anything like that. It's very important for you to be clean if you're going to apply for a government job.
Yes.
You don't have to be squeaky clean, but you got to have. They got to be able to investigate you, that kind of thing. So anyways, I go into the Border Patrol, and my wife tells me that I should be writing a book, man, because everything that I've done, and the same thing will apply to you, Derek, and all the guys you interview. Well, if I would have kept a diary of every daily thing I've done, I would be a happy guy just going back to those memories and rereading all those stories.
Yes.
So if there's something, some advice I can give is keep a diary. It doesn't matter how boring this diary might be. Years from now, it's going to be so interesting to read that.
Not only that, it might be a movie script one day,
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm telling you, I got Border Patrol stories that are never ending. I'm telling you. Just to give you an example. I was the first. They consider me Puerto Rican while I was in Border Patrol. Even in the military, they consider me Puerto Rican. Although I was born in New York, and I might have a New York accent, they consider me Puerto Rican because in my head, I'm Puerto Rican. But anyways, I was assigned to the station in a place called Comstock, Texas. There's actually one traffic light, and it's intermittent. I mean, it's just going like you blink and you miss the whole town. There's actually 70 people there and 3,000 goats, according to the last census. So anyways, this is for back in the day. This was real Border Patrol work, because Border Patrol got to a point that they implemented an X, and they would put a Border Patrol agent there just to deter immigration. But that's not that you're being a border fence guard. That's all you're doing. But when I was in, which was the early 90s, we were doing real border. We would follow groups of people for days. And now this is where it comes, like, you learn skills that at the academy they don't teach. Just to give you an example, I look back now and I says, wow, it's unbelievable. We were following a group. I'm a new guy. I'm a brand new guy. And the elder agent says, Gerald, they went right by here and you didn't see the signs. I says, what are you talking about? And he said, look at the grass. And I'm looking at the grass. I says, yes, there's grass. So, and he actually showed me where the steps of the grass, if you step grass, depending on the grass, and it'll slowly, depending on the time, will come up. So it might take hours for this grass to come up, looking for the sun. And he told me they passed through here an hour ago. I said, "There's no way." When we caught up to them, they had passed through exactly there an hour ago.
Because you know how long it
Now,
takes
this
for the
guy
grass to come back up.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
They don't teach that at FLETC. They don't teach that at FLETC.
And I was raised basically in an urban environment, and then I'm thrown out here in the boondocks of Texas, man. And it's story after story. I mean, and it's all a learning curve. It's all you're learning, and all of this sticks with you because I use that now. Believe it or not.
Now, how did you go from Border Patrol to ATF?
That's the thing, and you're gonna laugh at what I'm gonna say, but it's the truth. Every federal agent passes a lot of time in USA jobs looking for that perfect job.
Yes.
Yeah. That's all feds do. I mean, I tell you, they're looking for that particular niche, that particular job. Sometimes a lot of Border Patrol, and the Border Patrol used to do this back in my time. They don't do it anymore. And people, let's say you're from, just to give you, you're from San
Okay.
on purpose, they would send you to Arizona. They wouldn't send you to San Diego because they were thinking that you might have ties there, and you would go bad.
Right.
You know, so they would say, let him somewhere that he doesn't know anybody, and you know, and let him work there. It makes sense, but nowadays, people, they want to work where they grew up, or they want to stay where they were at. So they're allowing for people, if you're, let's say, from, I don't know, McAllen, Texas, and you apply from there, they'll try to stick you, 100 miles from there.
Yeah, and I think, Gerald,
they have started.
Gerald, I think that's a terrible, I mean, I know they do that now. I think that's a terrible idea because just like you said, people know you, your family could be compromised and things like that. But I know they do it to save money and everything else now.
Yes. And they want to alleviate the turnaround. Border Patrol has one of the biggest turnarounds because the other federal agencies love them Border Patrol guys because
Why
of the training they receive.
Okay.
Because it's paramilitary. It's paramilitary, and they teach. If you the cartels, I mean, and there's movies about them. The cartels are very active, and the stories that you hear are worse than when you see in movies or in real. Cartels in real life are really dangerous, and you know why? It's because they're organized. And I'm gonna go now. I'm gonna jump a little bit so I can finish my story of the dish. So I applied my investigative skills to that technology issue, and all I came up with this guy that I told you had this incredible amount of boxes in his house, and I started surveilling that guy. And after a month of surveillance, he figured out I was surveilling him because, I mean, it gets to a point, if you're on that guy day by day, he figures out, he at some point he's going to figure it out. So this guy approached me. He approaches me and says, "What are you looking for?" Because it's uncomfortable, right now. And says, "Well, you know what? I'm not really interested in you. I'm interested in the pirates." And I know by what I had discovered is he was a supplier to the pirates. He wasn't a pirate.
So he's selling the boxes.
He supplied.
Okay.
Yes. He supplied hardware to them. And he said, "What's in it for me?" He says, "Well," and this is where it gets iffy because this is actually, it wasn't criminal at the time. It was civil. It was criminal at the federal level. But at the Puerto Rico level, it was civil. So this took the decision, which is way above my pay grade, to make it criminal at the local level in Puerto Rico. And for them to do that, now we're getting into bigger stuff. For them to do that, they started lobbying with the Puerto Rican Congress to pass a law to make dish piracy illegal or criminal, because there wasn't a local law making it illegal. So they spent thousands of dollars lobbying. And when they did pass the law, which they did, and I went with the lawyer that lobbied for it, and we went directly to the PRPD's main guy. It was a colonel. And we're talking to the colonel about this. Says, hey, we know who's doing it. And now that it's illegal, we want you to go arrest this guy. Straight up, he looked at the lobby guy and me and said, I'm not doing it because I don't work for Dish. And he's right. He's basically right. But he also said, I don't have the manpower or the resources to go after dish piracy when I have thugs killing people in the streets. I'm not going to allocate my resources on piracy. And he's right. You know, if you look at the big picture, people care more about lives than piracy, obviously. But what's interesting about this is that there was an FBI agent that overheard our conversation. Now, remember, I'm a PI guy. I'm private now when this is happening. And the FBI guy approaches us and said, I heard what you were talking to the colonel, and I'm interested in it because we have never dealt with this. And they started helping me, and we uncovered, it was basically all my work, but the FBI took the glory of it. I don't want to go into it.
That's what they do.
I'm telling you, man, it's everything you hear at the FBI is true, man. But I did all the legwork. I did everything. All they did was type up a search warrant with my work. But anyways, and they typed it up in half an hour. I mean, that's all the work I did. So anyways, we uncovered an organization of 5 ex-employees of Dish that they had rented a house particularly to have servers, computer servers, in order to decode Dish program and resell it.
Wow.
So anyways, those guys, it became criminal, and those guys got arrested by the FBI. But my contract with Dish got eliminated because they said, if the FBI is working for us, why do I need you?
So you were so successful, you worked your way out of a job.
Exactly. I worked myself out of a job by letting the FBI in. So anyways, going back to the Border Patrol, I started back in the day in the Border Patrol, you were called a GS9 for life. And unless you know what I'm talking about, because the government goes by ranks,
right?
And particularly GS,
right?
So in the Border Patrol, you went from 5 to 9 in 2 years. GS5 to a 9 in 2 years, but you would stay a 9 forever if you didn't know somebody.
And you probably have to.
It was that kind of thing.
You probably have to do a stint in DC or something in order to move to.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. I decided, I looked into it, and ATF and FBI and all the big 3-letter word programs, you can go up to a GS13 with no problem.
Yep. That's their journeyman level, they call it.
Yeah. But the journeyman level at Border Patrol was GS9 back then. Yeah. So,
and that's not enough. Hey, Gerald, that's not enough money for the work that you guys do.
Yeah. Although that's what the cartel looks at. They see what you make, and they say, I'll give you what you make in a year. All you got to, and you don't have to do anything. All you got to do is look the other way around.
Yep. Just look the other way. Yep.
Just look to the side.
And
I'll tell you a story. Yes, it's very tempting. And I'll tell you a story that while on Border Patrol, there is something in law enforcement that I learned the hard way. And you learn it and you have to be there when it happens. I mean, it has to be your experience. The main objective of any law enforcement is to go home at night.
Yep.
Go home to your family safe.
Yep.
That's it. Everything else is whatever sparkles around it. The main thing is going safe.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you the whole scenario and I'll tell you my decision, but I'll ask you what you would do. I'm by myself. My next border patrol or backup is 4 hours away. Okay. I'm by myself. My radio is not hitting the tower, so I cannot communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And this is not an interview scenario. This is real life. This happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm at the river. I have been tracking a group, and I'm at the river. But this group was doing something different. They were going back to Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm tracking them from our side back to the river in Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
which is the Rio Grande. And when I look, I'm hidden in the bushes. And when I look, what it is they're waiting for a boat that's coming with dope.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So all they're going to do is they're going to be carrying stuff, to our side. When I look closer, I see the two boatmen have AR style type rifles on them, hanging. All I got with me is a 40 caliber Beretta, a handgun. They got two AR type rifles, and all I got is my 40 cal Beretta issue pistol.
Yeah.
I'm no match for these guys.
Mm-hmm.
If we get at it, I'm no match. I'm a dead man, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree on that?
Absolutely.
Even if I surprise them, even if I surprise them, which I cannot open fire first, all I'm going to say is, you're under arrest. That's all I'm going to say. Mm-hmm. The minute I say that, they're going to raise their weapons.
They're going to open fire, exactly. Mm-hmm.
And I'm a dead man, right?
Yep.
So what in that particular case, and I'm telling you, what would you do, Eric? Just to put it out there.
Very easy. You know what I do? I would be a very good witness.
Yes.
I'll be a very. They always say sometimes you have to be a good witness.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Don't try to be Superman, because Superman doesn't die. Yep. But you do.
Yep. You know what? Here's my thing, Gerald. I always say, Gerald, you can always catch a criminal another day. Like they say, live to fight another day. I'll get a description, turn that in. You can always catch them another day.
The same principle applies to the PIs that are starting out in surveillance. Mm-hmm. If you lose the guy, there's another day. Don't worry about it.
Absolutely.
But don't make up stories that X or Y happened. That if you lost him, you lost him. That's it.
And,
you know what I mean?
And what you
don't make up stories because you get in trouble.
You said something very important. Don't lie. I'd rather take a loss. I'd rather take a beating. I'd rather lose a client than lie to a client.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because at some point it'll bite you in the rear.
Yep.
At some point.
And it's a small community. They know each other. They're going to tell somebody else.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I had a boss, a PI boss, and he's what they call a case manager. And he actually went out, he assigned a case, and he actually went out there to see if the PI was showing up. And the PI, what would do was what we call, he would drive by, take a shot, and go on his business, and then come by another hour, take a shot. So that guy wasn't really surveilling the claimant. Mm-hmm. He was just, taking hour shots. Yeah. And he got caught. And that's how you lose your license. That's how you lose credibility. Everything. You lose everything.
So you were licensed. Are you still licensed?
It's perfect.
Are you still licensed in PI in Texas?
Yes.
Or are you licensed? Oh, okay. I mean, I'm sorry, Puerto Rico and Texas.
I'm in Puerto Rico, Texas now because this USDA SNAP program has blown up. They're getting me licenses in other places so I can go.
All right, so that's great.
For some reason I'm successful. For some reason I'm successful. But you know who's more successful?
Who?
Females.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Females as PIs.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a big need for female PIs. I'm telling you, man, we get there's only like 30 of us that do this SNAP program.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a chart of what we do every month. The number 1 and 2 spots are always females.
So why do you think that is? I teach this in my course, by the way, about female PI, but why do you think that is?
Well, I'm being sexist. I'm being real.
Mm-hmm.
But in this particular, what we're doing, which is trying to go and commit for stores. And if you're a female PI, they try to use their female sexiness because guys think they can hit on them. Mm-hmm. And they'll give them anything they want. I'm telling you, just because they're hitting on them. Mm-hmm. But the females know this and are using it for their advantage. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, they have a ratio which is unbelievable of an 80% positive in these cases that we're doing. 80%. That's unbelievable.
I tell all PIs that they should partner, or at least they need to have a woman PI in their firm. You have to have a woman in your firm.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about how there's a need in the industry for females and minorities. Mm-hmm. Not only females, but we need minorities. Mm-hmm. And especially the government has taken a look at this. And if you apply, let's say, to the FBI, and let's say you're from, I don't know, Saudi Arabia, you might have a better chance of getting in than a regular Joe from the streets in the U.S.
Yep, that's true now.
Because they're trying to, make it multilingual,
multicultural,
and it makes sense. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes.
Back in Hoover's
day, and I was telling you about how
back in Hoover's day, you and I would never have gotten in. Now you see more people look like us. Yes.
Yeah. And it breaks all the stereotypes. Mm-hmm. It breaks all the stereotypes because when I first got into the Border Patrol and I went to that station, they were expecting a colored guy being from Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I'm kind of black and I'm kind of white. Mm-hmm. And they were like, "You're not Puerto Rican." What do Puerto Ricans look? Exactly.
Exactly.
So it's a learning experience for everybody,
Yeah, they probably had some plans for you to put you in some undercover positions because you were darker skinned,
Absolutely. That was their thing.
Let me ask you a couple of questions. So what are you? So I know you're doing this thing with the federal government. Well, what are you currently working? I mean, that's what you're currently working on. Is that your main focus? Do you have some other things that you want to do in the future with your PI firm? And by the way, do you own your own firm or are you working for somebody?
I've always worked for somebody, and there's a reason in my head why I do it. Mm-hmm. Because I've seen PI firms, not that they fail, but that the owner has no life.
Yeah. Because it's not just PI job; it's a business too.
Yes, any business,
marketing, advertising, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Even these small stores I go to do this job, they're at the store 24/7.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Unless they have an employee of trust, but if not, the owner's there all the time.
Mm-hmm. Great.
That's not a life, bro. That's not a life.
So let me ask you. So what you've been around for a while? Matter of fact, how many years you been in this industry, if you don't mind me asking? In the industry, not just PI.
Oh my God.
You said in
In the whole,
83, 89, I think you said.
it's 83, 83. You're right.
Okay, so you're a little bit behind me. I'm 57 now, so I started in 80. No, we started at the same time. I started in 81. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
We're
And that's including military, you know.
yeah.
So what is one common myth about our profession that you would like to debunk?
Right. Well, you know what? Whenever I meet somebody, and if I decide I'm going to tell them what I do for a living, they think it's so interesting. And it's the complete opposite.
Because they see Magnum PI and all the shows on TV. Yeah.
Oh my God, please tell us. And like, dude, I sit for 8 to 16 hours in a vehicle waiting for something to happen.
Yep. And you know, I'm glad you stressed that, Gerald, because here's the thing. You have an interesting career. I mean, you're doing the Puerto Rico thing, when you was talking about the stuff with the cable companies and things like that, and what you do for the federal government, it's interesting work. But we're still going to be sitting around a lot, you know?
Yes.
They got to know that.
And the other thing is that people don't look into or don't think about it. A lot of paperwork.
Yes.
A lot. And I'm telling you, I spend more time on the reports than I do doing the field stuff.
Well, you know, I'm glad you brought that up. Other interviews, people always bring that up, and I always say this. I don't care how good you are at surveillance, investigations, hand-to-hand combat, shoot, whatever it is. If it's not in your report, the report is the most important thing. It didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
The federal government wants a well-written report from you. You know, they don't care how good you were with your spy glasses or whatever, right? So PI's got to understand that.
If you cannot write it, it didn't happen.
Didn't happen. And if you don't write well, you're not going to keep the job. They're going to get rid of it.
Exactly.
Yep. You can be James Bond, but if you can't write it up.
Exactly. And people don't think about that. And especially nowadays, and I'm not coming down on the new generations, but the way they speak and text and communicate is not the real English language.
You're absolutely right. And by the way, we have to write in narrative format. They used to write in bytes and bits that go in social media.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I want to ask you about this, Gerald, because you've been around. One of the things I think is lacking in our field and any field now, well, you said it, critical thinking and common sense. What's your thought? What's your take on that?
Dude, I'm telling you, critical thinking and common sense are the most sought out things, and people don't have it. Some people just don't have it.
Don't have it. You can develop it, but they don't have it. Yep.
And it takes a while to get that in there. As a matter of fact, I was having a conversation on the internet with another PI from Virginia, and we were arguing about getting legal video documentation, whatever, using private property. And I'm telling him, dude, it doesn't matter what the law says. You could be legally inside of private property, but common sense tells me to get out of there.
Exactly.
Because I'm going to be in a casket and there's going to be a sign on it saying he was there legally.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. And the guy in the house with the shotgun don't care if you're legally on his private property, serving a process serving.
But sense. It's common sense. And this guy's saying, no, I'm going to go there. I'm going to take the video because legally I can be there. I says, be my guest, bro. I'll be back in the vehicle.
That reminds me of all these people, these young people these days want to challenge the police and I got you on camera, blah, blah, blah. It's my legal right to take, you know what? It's going to get you beat up, arrested, maybe shot. Common sense, you know?
Well, talking about that, I saw, and not only did I see, but I had to deal with lawyers at the border. And let me let me tell you something about it, because not everybody knows about this. And when they see these videos, they don't know the law behind it. And let me tell you what the law, when it comes to national security, and we're talking about the border, a border patrol agent or a customs agent has the authority to ask you whatever they want because it's national security.
Patriot Act. That's what the Patriot Act is for. You know.
After 25 miles from a border, then the Constitution applies. But lawyers don't know this. All the lawyers know is that my Fourth Amendment rights, or whatever right it is, it doesn't matter. It's not that you lose the rights, but other things applies at the border.
Gerald, you know what? A little bit of knowledge, people with a little bit of knowledge is where they end up getting in trouble. You think you know, but you don't know. You know?
Don't know.
So tell me, how'd you make the transition from law enforcement, ATF, and all that to becoming a PI? What brought you there?
Well, I'll tell you what. And the main reason I went from government to private was, and some people might agree with me, some might not, but basically it comes to greed. I became greedy.
I'm with you there.
and there were these companies. I don't know if you ever heard of them. You probably have. DynCorp, Triple Canopy.
Oh yeah. All here. Yep.
So these guys approached me, and they wanted me to join them, and they were offering staggering amount of money. So greed took over me, and I went into the private sector. So these guys, actually, they didn't lie. They said, we will pay you well, which was true. You will travel, and you will meet new cultures. But those cultures were Iraqi and Afghanis.
But hey, it was true.
Everything they said was true. It's just the context.
They sound like our military recruiters.
Absolutely. That's exactly it. So I spent a few years doing contracting jobs with these companies in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I learned so much. But, and this is going into the personal, it cost me my marriage of 30 years.
I was just sitting there wondering that, because that's the tough part of our business. If we want to be out there really doing our business, we got to be gone. And that's tough.
Right. You got it. If you have a partner, and I'm not saying female, male, whatever, if you have a partner, that partner has to understand that they're marrying, and they got to understand the nature of the beast.
Yep. You're right.
So somebody that marries a military guy, they have to understand at some point they'll be deployed.
Yep. Or even when you talk about customs and ATF, sometimes we got to go be undercover for a while. And you know what? And we're going to have a different, you and I, because of the way we were raised in our background careers, we have a different mentality than the common people. I think military and law enforcement. And I'm going to tell you this, the first time I meet you, I don't always trust everything that comes out of your mouth. You know, and the first time I meet you, I'm sizing you up because I'm a military and law enforcement guy. You know, so when it's time to, when my wife say, "Hey, how come you didn't put your socks in the dirty clothes bin?" I'm thinking about the murder scene I just left or something like that. You know, so they don't understand those things. We have to kind of compartmentalize that, which is hard sometimes, right?
It is. Yep. And actually, my ex-wife got into customs, so she's been doing that for at least 10 years now. She loves it, which is awesome. My son now, and going now into the personal, kids and family, they don't learn by what you tell them. They learn by what they see.
Absolutely.
So my son now is a lieutenant colonel with the Marine Corps.
Nice.
Which is awesome.
Yes.
I mean, this guy, and he went to the Naval Academy. I mean, he's a ring knocker. You know all about this.
Yep.
And he's only 37. He's a lieutenant colonel. And he's 37, man.
That's great.
So, anyways,
he might get his star at that rate. He might.
Yes. I'm telling him he should do it, but he's thinking now into the private sector, which I says keep going. You're so close to the star, man.
Yep.
And going back to my Pentagon days, all I did for Kelso, all I wanted to know was in what golf court he was going to be at. That's all I needed to know.
Yes, yes.
Because these guys play golf all day long, bro. I'm telling you.
But but see, in your position, working for somebody like that, that gets you the rank. That gets you the rank.
Nobody messed with me.
Yep.
I was an E4. Nobody messed with me.
Exactly.
I had Navy Chiefs coming to ask me favors.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know how it is.
Well, when I was in the military, I was an investigator. So we worked civilian clothes and we couldn't reveal our rank. Man,
wow.
I'm an E5 and people bring me coffee because they're thinking I'm a lieutenant colonel or a major, depending on my age as I went on. What can I get you, sir? I have captains and majors bringing me coffee and all that, because every time they see me, I'm with the colonel, I'm with the general, doing protection. They didn't know my rank, and I loved it, man. That was a great way to go through the military, So did you train as a PI, or did your skills directly translate to you being a PI?
Well, that was the thing. I took all my government training and I applied it at basically because I became a PI in Puerto Rico. I went back to Puerto Rico. I love Puerto Rico. I keep saying Puerto Rico, but it's just that I love that place. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely beautiful. But anyways, and my two wives are Puerto Rican, so I love Puerto Rico.
Yes.
And my current wife, we've been together 10 years. Mm-hmm. She has a better understanding of what I do because she actually helps me in my cases.
Mm-hmm. That's good though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It blows my mind how much she understands. And
oh yeah, I pick my wife's brain. I pick my wife's brain too. Hey, let me run this by you.
And they'll give you insights that you never thought of.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, because the only person I actually talk to is her. I don't get to talk. I'm talking to you as a peer now because we're doing this, but usually I'm by myself.
Yep. And by the way, Gerald, that's important. I want people to know in this field, you're going to spend a lot of time by yourself. Even if you have another agency and you work, or you have other people, you're going to be on your case. You're going to be on theirs. You're going to be by yourself. So be prepared for that. And then we network with each other because we understand what we do. How do you tell people you're a PI? When people say, hey, what do you do for a living? Do you say I'm a private investigator right away, or?
No, I got to know. For example, the latest couple I met, it was my wife's bosses. Mm-hmm. So I asked her, have you told them what I do? And she said, no, I'm letting it up to you. Mm-hmm. So I decided, so we had a whole day of knowing each other just by my stories.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, because their jobs are office and it's boring according to them. Mm-hmm. So they want all my great stories,
what's funny about that? When I was in the military, when I was law enforcement and as a PI, I have people who are making a lot more money, a lot more successful, doctors and lawyers. I say as far as their career for doctor money wise, right? But they want to hear about what I did. Man, that's really cool stuff,
Absolutely. Yep. And that's going back to what I said. If I could have kept a diary of every day of what I did, no matter how boring, the stories are there.
Yep. So I have some more questions that I want to get answers to that I know people want to know. So let me ask you a few other things. Even though I could talk about stories all day long, I love them.
Right.
But so how do you continue to learn in order to stay up on your field? How do you increase your knowledge on PI work and things like that?
Well, that's a very good question, and a lot of people actually don't keep up with the industry. And it's okay too. If you keep up or not, it's all up to you how well prepared you want to be personally.
Yeah.
The way I keep up is I take, I would say 18 hours of training a year.
Great. All right. What kind of thing? Like now we have technology and cybersecurity and digital forensics and all that. So you got to stay up, right?
Absolutely. And there's so much. Just in one industry alone, in insurance alone, there's so much to learn. It's unbelievable. Mm-hmm. Yep. There's no way to know everything.
Yep. Well, Gerald, even if you want to be a legal investigator, like you can be a private eye, but if you want to work for law firms, you got to understand their language. You got to understand Les Penders. You got to understand what they do. So you have to kind of build a specialty in those niches that you want to be in, be it insurance, workman's comp, law, what you do, telecommunications, whatever it is.
Every day is different. Just to give you an example that happened last month, and if I don't write these things down in a year, I'll forget.
Mm-hmm.
This lawyer out of Louisiana contacts me. I have no clue how he got me, but he says, I've heard about you, whatever. I need a favor from you. I'm going to hire you, and I need you to retrieve a black box from a salvage vehicle. First of all, I didn't know vehicles had black boxes.
Yeah, I didn't either. Like a plane, Uh-huh.
It's exactly that. It's a computer hard disk that expensive vehicles have. And they record everything. They record speed, time of day, the time the airbags were deployed. All it does, it records that, right? It's a black box, basically. It's a black box. So he says, it's in your area. That's why I'm contacting you. But he says, I don't want you to take it out. You need to go get a certified mechanic and go get it out. And you got to tape everything. And this is all new to me.
Yep.
So I started reading up on it. And the first thing you got to do is you got to get an anti-static bag to put that thing in.
Yep.
I never thought about that.
Yeah. Well, I never even knew they had black boxes. So you taught me something today, and a lot of other people watching.
And this was particularly, it was a STX Cadillac, and the black box was under the middle console. So I had to physically, because the mechanic didn't do it, I physically removed the center console, and then the mechanic all he did was remove 4 screws and took the thing out and gave it to me. And that was it.
And then got his $300, whatever. Yeah.
500.
Wow.
Yeah. But
now, why were you recording it for chain of custody?
Yes, absolutely. That's all I was. I was chain of custody.
Yep.
Because apparently it was a lawsuit regarding, some claimant saying that he was doing this speed or whatever, and he got in an accident. Well, the lawyer tracked down the vehicle and got the black box, and now he's going to find out if he was telling the truth or not.
Yep, that's cool. So what's one thing you wish you had known when you entered this career field?
Oh, my goodness. But that's, I heard somebody say when I was young, and I didn't understand what that person said, but now I do. And it's a cliche, man. And when I say it, you're going to agree. If I would have known back then what I know, this or that. But you know what? I wouldn't change a thing of what I've done. The only thing I would change, and this is real, I wouldn't go into the private sector. The only reason I like my government job was the camaraderie. I miss the camaraderie.
Yeah. And here's the thing, the camaraderie and the resources we had. When I became a PI, Gerald, I took it for granted. We could call NCIC, or whatever, and get information. I had to learn, and I had to learn as a PI how to use Tracer or IRB source, or where I'm gonna get my information from. And it's different.
Absolutely. But you know what? That made you a better PI.
That's true. And a better investigator overall. Yep. Because
the government employees rely so much on that. For example, just to give you an example, and you're going to agree completely with me, on a surveillance, just talking about a surveillance, if you're a government agent, you can have 2 or 3 vehicles following the rabbit.
Exactly.
Now, when you're by yourself, it's a whole different game.
Exactly.
I mean, and if that guy makes a U-turn, are you going to make a U-turn?
Yep. And you can't tell the back car, hey, I'm going to keep straight, you follow. You can't pass off,
Absolutely. It's a whole different ballgame, but it made me a better PI.
Yep, I agree.
Because I don't rely on those government resources. I got to rely on what I got.
And what's another thing? It makes you, for instance, if I show up with my badge and I say, you got to talk to me, guess what? You got to talk to me. If I show up as a PI and say, I would like to talk to you, you can tell me to pound sand. I have to use my skills now, rapport building. I got to use skills to be able to get the information I want where I can't demand anymore. So it makes you a better investigator, interrogator, interviewer. And you know something else you said? You said this early on. My investigative skills have helped me in other areas of life. I was a car salesman. The same skills I used for doing an investigation made me the first month in, I was the top salesman for like 4 or 5 months in a row because I used the same steps: build rapport, ask open-ended questions. All the things we learned as investigator for interview, I did that with my clients to see what kind of car they wanted, and I let them sell me the car. I let them tell me how to sell them the car. Great skill. Oh, and picking up girls, I use the same skills, by the way. But go ahead, man.
If I try to teach what you just said, it doesn't happen, and I'll explain it. The best interviews I've had, and there's been countless interviews. I don't have a number. Mm-hmm. The best interviews I've had is when I let them talk.
Yes.
Just ask them an open-ended question and let them talk. They'll fall into the trap themselves.
Yep. And so, feeding on that, Gerald, that makes us better listeners because most people ask a question while they're preparing their next question.
Yes.
We have to learn to listen, just like your interview. I get something you said earlier and say, let me talk about something you said earlier because I have to be an active listener. And we always feel like if there's quiet time, we always feel like somebody got to fill that space. And they taught us that as investigators, just ask a question and shut up. The person will get uncomfortable and feel like they have to talk. And they'll start talking more. Same thing in our life, with our wife, anything else, that skill works.
Let them talk. Let them talk. Just listen. And you might get new information. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Because they're talking. Just let them talk.
I didn't even know that. Let me feed off of that.
Absolutely.
So with all the experience you have, what advice would you give to someone wanting to enter our profession now? PI, law enforcement, whatever. What advice would you give them, the newbies?
Well, I belong to a lot of groups of PIs, and there's always a polar group. Like one says, for you to be a good PI, you got to have a law enforcement background, and others say, no, you don't. Mm-hmm. And I'm in the middle. If you have common sense, if you have critical thinking, if you have good observation skills, attention to detail, it doesn't matter if you're law enforcement or not. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
I mean, you can come straight off the block as long as you pay attention, you shut your mouth and learn.
Yep. And I'm going to say this, Gerald, you from New York, I'm from Chicago. Let me tell you, some of the best skills I have in law enforcement came from me being on the streets. So like you said, if you got that common sense, that intuition and all that from the streets, that can translate into your law enforcement and PI career. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I mean, and sometimes you need that. You know what they call that in Spanish? It's malice. You got to have malice. Mm-hmm. You got to really think like them.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
What would I do? How would I do it?
Mm-hmm. When I did undercover operations, man, I was a good undercover operator because of my street background. So when we take somebody that came and had never been, who come from a small, let's say, place in Tennessee and never been in a fight, never done anything, never been involved with that, and made them undercover agents, they weren't that. Some of them were, but most of them weren't that good at it because they didn't have that street knowledge already,
And you know what? Going back to training, government training, and they took it out of the training, which was a mistake. Mm-hmm. In Border Patrol, just like in many police academies, you would have to box.
Oh yeah. Yep. And you used to do it in the Navy. Remember the Navy? We had the smokers. Well, yes.
And the reason behind it was a lot of people don't know what a punch in the face feels like.
Yep.
And when you get punched, you got to know how to react to that.
Gerald, I used to fight all the time in Chicago. In the military, I met people who had never been in a fight before in their life.
Never.
I couldn't even register that.
But that's the thing. That's why they create these trainings to get people from. That's why the military is so good, because they take people from all backgrounds and make them one.
Yep.
I mean, that's the whole purpose of it.
And Mike Tyson said, "You can have all the plan in the world until you get hit in the face."
He's absolutely right. Because people will lose control by pain. People lose control.
Yep.
And you got to control that pain.
Yep. So you've been around a while. What are you most proud of in your career? Your entire career? What do you think you're most proud of?
Oh, wow. You know what? It has nothing to do with law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
It has to do with being a family man. The thing I'm most proud is that my kids are productive citizens.
Yes.
And they never got in trouble. I mean, I'm just proud of being a good parent.
Yep. That's great, man.
But it has nothing to do with law enforcement. Now,
right. And that's fine. You know,
yeah.
Because here's the thing: in order to be that great parent, you had to balance a law enforcement career,
right,
with still being a great parent. And even if marriages fail or whatever, you still could be a great parent. You know,
yes.
and some people forget that they disappear. You know, so you
right.
still be a great parent. So, with that being your proudest thing, what about the biggest failure you ever had, and what did you learn from that?
Oh wow! Actually, it's a war story, really.
Okay.
And okay, I'm a contractor in Iraq. All right. And the military gave me that. It's funny, but it's really not. They gave me a task, and it was to teach ethics to the Iraqi policemen. Now, it's one thing to teach ethics, and another is that there's a whole different culture.
I knew you were going to say that. Yes.
Same ethics.
Exactly.
So they would accept bribes ethically, as long as they didn't use that money in women or liquor. How do I change that?
Yeah, you're right.
I can't. But the military wanted me to. So I came up with this course, and it's not funny. It happened. I mean, I gave the course, and it would basically be putting these policemen in ethical situations. And I would tell them, let's say you accepted a bribe to let somebody into the country, because back then they were letting in foreign fighters. Because the Iraqis were actually not the ones fighting us; it was foreign fighters coming in Iraq. So the military wanted to stop these foreign fighters from coming in. So I was trying to teach ethics to these policemen, border patrol, Iraqi guys. They're called Iraqi Defense Forces, IDF. Right. But anyways, I would start a conversation with them, and we're talking about 50 of them in a classroom, and they're all with their AK-47s, right? And all I got is a terp. I got an interpreter with me, who God knows what he's saying when I talk. I have no clue, man.
Yep.
And I got an Army major with me. So it's two guys, because the terp doesn't count against 50.
Exactly.
And we could have been killed or kidnapped at any point, because we were out there with them. I mean, we weren't inside a base. We were out in Iraq with them.
Yep.
It was the only way to do it. Because we were not going to let 50 armed Iraqis into the base.
Yeah.
So anyway, I started this curriculum of trying to put them in scenarios. And just to give you an example, I would say, does everybody here believe in Allah, in God? Everybody will raise their hands. Whoever they raise it, he was a dead man. So I said, okay, so Allah sees everything. They would say, yes, that he sees everything. So he sees when you get that bribe money, he sees it, but he agrees on it. Says, wait. So Allah agrees that you receive the money and you let a foreign fighter in, and he blows up kids and women. And they would come back and say, it's his fault. He blew himself up. Says, no, you let him in. The blood falls on your head. And they would think about it for a minute. And then they would come out and justify themselves.
They probably say, it's Allah's will.
It's Allah's will. It would have happened anyways. And I would end up going nowhere. So I think that was my biggest failure. And it wasn't my failure. It was our system trying to impose our ethics into them.
Well, you were teaching American ethics to a different culture.
It's not going to work.
And let me just say, I was stationed in Turkey for 2 years. And it's like you said, I would do two kind of investigation. First, I'm out with them in the field, and we have American ways, right? Their way of doing business was bribery. If I wanted something from Turkish National Police or the Army, I had to give them something. And it might even be a simple thing. A guy say, "Hey, I need a box of diapers for my kid." They need a whole. They used to carry guns with rubber bands around and stick it in their pants. Hey, I need a holster. I need 10 holsters for my guys. That's just the way we operated. And another thing, I used to have we have government contracts and we give them to the Turkish nationals or the Iraqi nationals. But the way they did, but we can't have collusion and bid rigging, right? So they can't say, okay, Gerald, it's your turn to get this contract. Derek, it's your turn to get that contract. So this is what I'm going to bid so you can be the highest bidder. That's the way they did business in Turkey. I'm investigating because that's against the law. That's bid rigging and collusion. But I'm like, guys, but you have to say, this is how they operate in Turkey. It is now Gerald's turn. So everybody else is going to bid $10 and Gerald's going to bid $5. And that's just the way they operate. We cannot impose our American ways on the way Turkey, Afghanistan, Iraq. And that was some of our failures because we thought that's what we're very arrogant as Americans. And we think that everywhere in the world, our way is supposed to be the right way. And they're supposed to conform to our way in their country. And that's how we feel sometimes, man.
Absolutely. No, and you made me remember the whole ethic issue. Just they're paying the way they pay their police officers. And and a quick story. It looked like cartoonish in a way. This guy would come from Baghdad with a suitcase, literally with a suitcase with bills, dollar bills coming out of the suitcase. It looked like a cartoon. And he would sit on a desk. He would open the briefcase full of money, and then the officers would come, and he would literally, you can see my hands, right? He would literally do 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I said, "What? Why are you making 2 stacks?" And he said, "Well, this is for him, and this is for the guy that brought him in." And I said, "No," and I made 1 stack. And I gave it to the guy, and I looked at him. He went out, he divided it, and gave it to the guy who brought him in.
Oh, yeah. Because that's how they do it.
That's the way it is.
Yep, that's the way it is.
And they changed that.
Yep.
And, the curious thing is they would do what I would say when I was there. The minute I left, it went back to whatever it is.
Exactly. They're going to go back to the way they do it. And that's why the Army and everybody there years, we couldn't change that. That's the way they do it. So, man, go ahead.
And they should for 4,000 years doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And we're temporary. Plus, you know how many other countries are occupied and been in those countries? We come and go, and they know we come and go, and they're there for good. America is there, Russia is here, whatever. They're gonna be gone.
Absolutely.
So, man. So, Gerald, this has been great. We've been going for a while. I love the stories and things like that. I think people are going to appreciate that and learn. I learned some things from you today that I didn't know about, like black boxes and some other career opportunities that's out there for us. So I appreciate that. If you could step into my shoes right now, what is one thing you would ask yourself that I may have forgotten to ask you or I didn't ask? What would that thing be?
Wow, that's a good question. I would say maybe why did you went from government to private? And I answered that. I said greed. And basically greed, if you look at it, is one of the main, is the root of all evil.
As they say, yeah.
As they say. So I would say, if I could turn back the clock on that issue, I would still be a government guy. But all that prepared me to be the guy I am today.
Oh, absolutely. And let me tell you, I have 32 years in the government right now. I'm back in the government. My full time is I'm a government GS-15, Oh,
wow.
So, but here's the thing, and I run my PI firm and my investigation academy on the side. But here's the thing, I left the government for 8 years. I would have 40 years right now. I left for 8 years because I saw the money. I went and worked for Booz Allen Hamilton, Computer Science Corporation. I'm a cyber guy also. So I left, I gave up GS-14 pay and went and got like a $25, $50, $75,000 raise in the government. But guess what I was doing? I mean, in the civilian world. But in that 8 years, I had like 5 or 6 jobs because I call myself a gigolo of the system. Somebody come wave some more money and I go over there, and then I go over here, then I go over there. And at the end, I say, you know what? I'm not happy doing this. And I ended up back in the government. I'm like, I got a steady job. You know, I work from home right now 5 days a week, but even when it's not pandemic, I work from home 4 days a week. You know, we know the money is steady. We know our benefits are there. I'm 57 now. I didn't want to keep chasing contracts, you know, so I ended up back in the government. So you're right. I went out for the money for a while. I'm like, man, I went from 145 to 175 and then to 190. Okay. And now I'm back down to pretty much where I was almost, but I'm happier and I'm more steady. Plus I can still do my stuff on the side. So I'm with you there. I'm with you there.
I tried to go back in, but I went in the wrong way. And I'll tell you, I only lasted 6 months. I went into TSA as a TSA officer.
Yep.
And it has been my worst experience with the government.
Yeah. Yep.
Really micromanagers, man. They're really
well, you know why? Because with them, man, I hate to say this, but it's almost like, you know how people say you have that security guard mentality. At the time, when my brother had gotten a TSA job, and at the time it was almost like you just needed somebody to be able to breathe, you know. So you had to micromanage them. You had to really be on them. And same thing with the Postal Service. They do this kind of thing too, and they get in trouble for the micromanagement. But some of the people they hire, you were too accomplished to go to TSA.
Right.
A new person out of high school, that's their first job or whatever, that might be a good job for them standing there doing that. It's for a certain person.
Yes, absolutely.
You should have went as a supervisor over there or something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
All right, man. So I'm gonna wrap this up. So, last thing I want to know is if anybody wants to contact you or anything like that, or connect with you, share some work. Like I told you, I have a case I want to send out your way. How can they reach you? How can they connect with you?
Well, the only way I would say is look for me as Gerald Anthony on Facebook.
All right, so that's good. I'll put that down below, and I'll actually put a link to your link in down below after this one here.
Right.
So, man, again, thank you very much. It's been enlightening. Plus, it's been fun. What I tell people is that by me doing these interviews, I'm also building a network of investigators that I know. And, and you know, you can call me for something. I can call you for something. I have questions. Hey, Gerald, how do I do this? Or, hey, I'm coming. I got something in Texas, or you got something in Maryland. You know, we become a network, and that's what I'm trying to build. I'm doing this because, of course, I want people to know who I am and know about my investigations, but to build a network with good people like you. So again, thank you very much. Any last words you would like to leave folks with?
No, I'm going to be going to see you some point because my son is stationed in Maryland.
Well, if you do that, we're going to connect and meet. And
absolutely.
I've had my COVID shot and all that, so I'm more comfortable getting out. So I'm serious. If you come to town, let me know and we'll meet up. I'll take you to lunch.
Absolutely. I'll hold you up to it.
And I'll see you on Facebook.
All right. Thank you, Derek.
You take it easy. Well, that's it for this video, folks. If you want to learn more about private investigation or become a private investigator, check out my Private Investigator career course at privateinvestigationsacademy.com. It is jam-packed with 35 lessons on everything you need to possibly know to be a private investigator. And by the way, when you get my course, you also get a free vacation to one of 51 available locations, and I have a 3-payment plan available. So again, check out my PI career course at privateinvestigationsacademy.com. I'll see you on the next video.